Okay, and welcome back to Top Tier Sports. I'm Victor,
I'm Brett.
and it's NHL Day, so time for some hockey, my dudes. With that,
God.
with that, we're gonna get right into it. A couple trades happened in the NHL that we're gonna lead off with. So first of all, Penguins traded Eric Branson for a 7th and Andres Martinson. I love this trade for the Penguins.
Yes, how could you not?
Yeah.
It's hard not to.
I
Salary dump move.
I thought it was the first good trade that Jim Rutherford has made in a while.
Quite some time, yeah.
So,
It's been a while.
Yeah.
Yeah, good stuff. Another trade that happened, Brandon Perlini went from the Chicago Blackhawks to the Detroit Red Wings. He had requested a trade. He wanted out of Chicago, so he gets his wish. 23-year-old winger will join a nice young core there in Detroit as they continue their rebuild, and Alex Regula goes back to the Blackhawks. Next bit of news, that covers all the trades. The Heritage Classic happened in this past week. Want to talk a little bit about how it seems every year the Heritage Classic really gets no publicity. People kind of forget it's even happening. Even in Canada, it doesn't really get talked about much. It's just kind of swooped under the radar. So kind of weird how the Winter Classic gets hyped up, and that does not. But anyways, it happened. It was the Winnipeg Jets and the Calgary Flames in Saskatchewan. It was a snowy night. Made for some really cool pictures. It was a cool game to see out there on the ice. The Jets won this one 2-1 in overtime. Brian Little notching the overtime winner. And in that game, Adam Lowry picked up a nice 2-game suspension for a semi-dirty hit on the Flames defenseman Oliver Shillington. So Adam Lowry missed the next 2 games.
Did you feel 2 games was adequate or a little much?
I think it was just about right.
Okay.
Yeah, I didn't think it was that egregious of a hit, but probably worthy of a suspension still.
They're trying to crack down, make sure these things don't happen. So
right, we want a safer league.
Right.
And that will bring us to everybody's favorite time of the week. Your top cheddar goal of the week. This week, hands down, it's the man who's been on fire, red hot.
Yep.
David Pastrnak. So let's eat some pasta. Not too shabby. Not too shabby. We love between the legs goals here at Top Cheddar Sports. That's why I picked it. Trickled in through the 5-hole there, barely crossing the line, but a very nice goal from a man who, it feels like he's been in the league for like a decade.
Yes.
But the dude's like 24.
Yeah.
Or something like that. 23, 24. It's
insanely young.
It's pretty crazy. And only getting better. So congratulations to David Pastrnak. You join the tie for first.
Yep.
Moving on to more injury problems around the league. And boy, was there a lot. Only 3 or 4 pieces of good news, a lot of bad news from a lot of good players. Let's get right into it. I want to start with Ryan Murray, who's missing 3 to 4 weeks with a broken hand. Why is this significant? Well, 1, he's a good player. 2, the Blue Jackets were reportedly shopping him, and now obviously those trade talks that they were having are put on hold for another month at least. Yeah. So that is significant for them in a lot of different ways. Ryan Murray obviously was a high draft pick. He hasn't really lived up to that potential while still being a solid defenseman. You hate to see that though, but yeah, interesting there that they were looking to move him, and now obviously they have to wait on that.
Always tough because then the team doesn't want him, or they don't want to sell him at below the value because he can't play. Right. Connor Carrick out 4 to 6 weeks.
Yeah. Another big one, long term.
Yeah. A lot of these long-term ones we're really starting to see.
Yeah.
And for how early in the season it is,
it sucks.
You never want to see it. Exactly.
It sucks. Yeah, so Connor Carrick will miss at least a month and a half probably there. Probably the biggest one from this past week, certainly the longest, is Vladimir Tarasenko.
Yeah, that's a huge hit for St. Louis.
Huge hit. Probably one of the more dynamic wingers in the league. He will be undergoing shoulder surgery that will put him out for at least 5 months.
which
if
basically
my math is correct,
says St. Louis, you need to make the playoffs without him. Just about. He'll be back for the very end of the season.
Exactly.
And then for playoffs.
Yeah.
If they make it. So
something to look for, though, if the Blues do make the playoffs. Tarasenko will be coming back.
Right around that time. So, not necessarily a team to underestimate if they sneak in as a wild card and then he comes back.
Right. Yeah. You want to take the next one?
Yeah, Gabriel Landeskog, I believe, happened towards the very beginning of the week, but he's hurt. He's out indefinitely. We don't have a timetable for him yet, so another one that I think might end up being on the longer.
I'm thinking longer term.
And I just don't think they want to announce it yet.
Yeah.
We'll
so, obviously, Rantanen, we mentioned last week, also going down. So, McKinnon is now by himself on that top line, essentially. So, tough one for the Avs, who I think everybody had a lot of high hopes for this year.
Yep.
Now let's get to some good news, injury-wise, at least. So we'll start with the Boston Bruins. David Krejci, who started the year on the IR, came back for one game, then went right back to the IR. He is now activated again. Big part of that Bruins core.
Yes.
Their second-line center, when healthy. So a big addition for the Bruins, who seem to be doing fine without him. But
I was going to say, after how much they've been thriving lately, this is just another bonus.
They'll keep adding to it. So hopefully he can, remain healthy for a little longer now.
Yep. Alex Galchenyuk makes his return last night to the Pittsburgh Penguins. Mm-hmm. That's a big addition for them, as are a couple other of the injury updates we have.
Right. Brian Dumoulin also returned in that game against the Flyers. Two big pieces for the Penguins there. Galchenyuk, obviously their big offseason acquisition, and Dumoulin, in my opinion, their most solid defender. So to get both of them back into the lineup. And Evgeny Malkin started skating again, and he is targeting a return to the lineup on Saturday.
Another big piece, obviously.
I would say.
For any team.
So a lot of positive news on the injury front for the Penguins.
Yeah.
Not so much for the other teams in the league, but
right.
It is what it is.
It happens like that sometimes.
And let's end on more happy news.
Yes.
And I want to have a little mini discussion about this as well. So Roman Josi, the captain of the Nashville Predators, inked an 8-year extension. It's going to pay him an average value of $9.059 per over those 8 years. Includes a full no trade clause. And this makes him now the third highest paid defenseman in the league, behind Erik Karlsson, who's still number one, and Drew Doughty. So what I want to know, I want to talk about our opinions of the extension itself, and then where this puts him in terms of highest paid in the league, and is that deserving or not. So let's start with the extension itself. Josi is 28, I believe, or 29. He's 28 or 29. So this is going to take him right up to the end of his career, essentially.
Right.
Will he be overpaid in those later years? Sure. And I'm not sure if they front load it, which is smart on their part. He'll still it's still a risky length in my mind.
Yes and no. So I see it as, obviously, when you sign a player of that age to any type of long term, it's somewhat of a risk, but I feel like, especially after seeing Mark Giordano this past year, we're showing that defensemen especially are able to play at, not always, but there are exceptions to those.
Like Giordano is a special case.
There are those who are able to play at a higher level later. And that being said, he's still only going to be about, I'm going to say 36 at the end of this. Nashville thrives off their defense. I think this is a good move for them because he is the core of their team. He's their captain. And with them being a defensive team and that mindset, it wasn't somebody they wanted to lose. And maybe they overpaid slightly, but they did front load it. And I think it's also a staple type of move for the city, along with the actual on-the-ice play. And that's my take on it.
Sure. No, I'm not saying I dislike the contract. I like the contract a lot because, like you said, he's a huge part of that team. And now they have him long-term, which is very important for them. I'm more concerned with just...
quite how much.
Yeah, and we see a lot of Yosi's game right now is his strength. his strength in skating. He's a very strong skater. That's tough to keep up with age. So I just don't know towards the end of this really what kind of a player he's going to be anymore.
Are you thinking second half or like the last 2 years?
I'm thinking like the last 2 to 3 years.
Okay.
It might be pretty bad. But for now, let's not think about that.
I do also want to note about that signing. Nashville actually gave him a full, basically no movement clause. So unless he agrees to be moved or traded to a certain team, he cannot. And I think this is one of the first times they've ever done this. They don't like to do this for their players, I found out. So that's another big piece, just acknowledging how much he means to their team.
Right. And that, again, raises concerns towards the end.
Right.
When that salary's on your books, maybe you can't move him. So now in terms of when we look at the highest paid defenseman in the league, and we'll try to wrap this up fairly quickly, but Erik Karlsson's still number one. That contract, Sharks gave him last year, I believe 10 years. I forget what the value was exactly, but he is still the highest paid defenseman. At the time, sure. Is he still worth that money now? I'd say yes. Is he the defenseman he was with Ottawa? Absolutely not. Is that contract looking worse and worse with each passing day? It would appear so.
I think if it's not quite worth what it was, I don't think he's quite worth what it was when they signed it, for the sole fact of if he was to restructure or like start a new contract today, I don't think he would get that much. I don't know if he would be paid as a top three. He's still very deserving of the money.
Yeah.
But that's what San Jose had to pay him if they wanted him to stay.
And you really see what those 2 bad leg injuries have done to him. He's just not as fast. He's not as strong. That was a big part of his game. He's still got the great hockey sense, his great passing ability. But yeah, he's just not the same guy out there. So, which brings the question, and then Drew Doughty, we all know is overpaid. We don't even need to talk about that. Overpaid and overrated. But that brings the question up now. If you were to start your team today, would you pay Roman Josi Erik Karlsson's contract? Like, do you think Roman Josi should have gotten more money? Well, do you value him more than Erik Karlsson at this point in time?
I think Roman Josi would have probably been paid more than Erik Karlsson if he left Nashville. I think they probably got somewhat of a hometown discount. Maybe not the difference, but probably pretty close to it. I don't know if he's quite the best. He's one of, in my mind, the best defenders out in the league right now, but for that length of time,
I'd say he's a top 5 defender for sure.
Yeah, so I don't know if I would pay him that, or Erik Karlsson's amount for 8 years.
So you think they're both a little overpaid?
I think Josi is worthy of what he got for Nashville, but if he were to go somewhere else, it would have been more, and that to me is too much.
Gotcha. Okay. So let us know what you think about all 3 of these players and their contracts. Right. Let us know who you think, which defensemen are deserving to be paid the highest in the league right now. Yep. And as we look at, there's a lot of good young defensemen in the league still. Some of which are getting locked up already, like Jacob Trouba we saw with the Rangers and so forth. But who do you think will be the next defenseman to get this level caliber contract?
A top 3 level average annual salary.
And who do you think deserves that the most? Because I do want to hear your opinions on this, because it is very interesting to see defensemen paid this highly.
Right.
We typically don't see it as much. Typically that money goes to your forwards, sometimes even your goalies. But yeah, let us know what you think. Let us know what you think about all these injuries as well. And leave a like, leave a comment, smash that subscribe button.
Send in your votes for next week's Top Terror Goal of the Week.
Yes. Yeah.
We want to hear from you.
Honestly, yeah. Just message us on Twitter or comment on YouTube if you see a goal that you think's deserving, and we'll take a look at it, and we'll
go from there.
Yeah, we'll go from there. I think that's all I got.
That's it for me.
Tune in for the NFL tomorrow.